that's what I was raised to be. It was a baseball player. I'm lucky that I got to be one, you know.
Coming up on Sunday Sports Day, one of the greatest ball players of all time, Mickey Mantle, has died. On the field, Mantle's Yankees play long ball against Cleveland. The Dodgers and Pirates come to a bizarre conclusion out west. Rich Kotite's new team battles his old one. The Raiders and Rams have an L.A. reunion in Oakland. A look at Mike Tyson's time in prison through the eyes of other inmates. And a conversation with Roger Clemens in an injury-plagued season.
I'll go out there. It doesn't make a difference. At 70%, you know, I'm as good as anybody.
It's all ahead on Sports Weekly. He stood on the pedestal for a generation, but in the end, told kids not to be like him. Mickey Mantle has died at the age of 63 of liver cancer. Good morning, everybody. I'm Jack Edwards. As always, Dick Schaap joins us from New York. And Dick, one wonders if Mantle will be remembered more for his 18 spectacular seasons in Major League Baseball or for what we learned about him in the 26 years since he retired.
Well, Jack, when he was on the playing field, he was a hero, an inspiration, an immortal, a baseball immortal. Off the field, of course, he was very, very mortal. I just hope that the last year of his life, when he was free of alcoholism, when he was fighting against the disease, that this part of his life can be an inspiration to young people the way so many young people were inspired by him when he was a ball player. You know, don't be like Mickey, as you said, as he said. He can help people now, even after he's died, just as he helped so many people when he was young and beautiful.
Thanks, Dick. We'll be checking in with you and your colleagues throughout the morning. Number 7 is dead. Mickey Mantle died at the age of 63 at 2:10 a.m. Eastern Time. A Baylor University Hospital spokeswoman said the cause of death was metastatic liver cancer. Mantle's family was with him in his final hours. Mantle checked into the hospital on May 28th with abdominal pain and abnormal liver function. Doctors diagnosed liver cancer. Although they were not able to remove all of a malignant tumor, they performed a liver transplant, saving Mantle's life on June 8th. 35 days later, a CAT scan revealed spread of the liver cancer to Mantle's right lung. After chemotherapy, Mantle began to suffer from anemia. The hospital admitted him again 9 days ago. Last Monday, another CAT scan revealed more cancer in Mantle's lungs and abdomen. He died about 8 hours ago. We know what Mickey Mantle was. He was something to every baseball fan. The man raced at the reckless speed only an athlete can handle through the intersection of a burgeoning society and a beautiful game. As a player, he occupied a unique place in American history. We know what he was, but who was he? Was it humanly possible to connect the American fantasy of Mantle to the reality and frailty of his flesh? Or was the recklessness the connection? Keith Olbermann now on the life of Mickey Mantle.
In a simpler, more glorious time in sports, he was the icon of a generation. And when that time became more complex and more realistic, and when that generation aged, he became the living warm memory, the half myth, the 50s and 60s, still wearing a smile, still swinging a bat. Mickey Mantle. He was, his father thought, born to be a ball player, so Mutt Mantle planned ahead.
My dad named me after a baseball player before I was born. I was named after Mickey Cochran, and that's what I was raised to be. It was a baseball player. I'm lucky that I got to be one, you know. But that's all I ever thought about was being a baseball player.
Mutt Mantle was an Oklahoma zinc and lead miner, and in the 30s at $50 a week, there was no extra money in the household. But every night, Mickey remembered, his father would play ball with him on a homemade field. And every night as well, Mutt Mantle told Mickey, someday the managers will only use right-handed hitters against left-handed pitchers and left-handed hitters against right-handed pitchers. You become a switch hitter. The Yankees signed him in 1949. Their scout, Tom Greenwade, would be famous for 3 decades for having found him. He was an indifferent fielder as a minor league shortstop, but from the first day, he was a major leaguer at the plate. In 1951, the Yankees held a special camp for promising farmhands in Arizona. As Casey Stengel watched on, Mickey Mantle played himself onto the big league team. He had speed, he had the instincts of an outfielder, and he could hit a ball as far and as hard as anyone had ever seen. But stardom did not come quickly. On July 15, 1951, the Yankees sent 19-year-old Mickey Mantle to the minors, and there he still could not hit. He thought of retiring. He called his father.
He knocks on the door, and I let him in. He just walks right past me, grabs my old suitcase, and throws it down. He starts throwing stuff in it. You know, what are you doing? He goes, well, he said, I'm taking you back home. Said, you can work in mines with me. He said, I thought I raised a man, not a coward. And he said, you're nothing but a coward. Said, you can just come back and work in the mines. And, of course, he's got tears in his eyes, you know, and it really tore me up, you know, see him feeling that bad, too. So it took me about 30 minutes to talk him into letting me have another chance, you know. But anyway, after he went home, I started hitting, and the rest was history.
1953, his 565-foot blast off Chuck Stobbs of the Senators at Griffith Stadium, Washington, is the first of the so-called tape measure home runs. 1955, he wins his first home run crown with 37. He is 23 years old. 1956, the MVP award, the Triple Crown, not just the American League Triple Crown. He leads the majors with 52 homers, 130 RBI, a .353 batting average. He also leads in runs scored and in slugging percentage, and he's 14th in the majors in stolen bases. 1961, the epic race with history. He and Roger Maris feasting on the pitching of the first expansion season, chase Babe Ruth. Maris wins the race. Mantle wins the fans. Between 1955 and 1961, Mickey Mantle hit 290 homers, better than 41 a season. The rest was history, none of which Mutt Mantle would see. Mickey caught his foot in a drain pipe at Yankee Stadium during the 1951 World Series and tore up his knee. When he awoke after the surgery, he found his father in the adjoining hospital bed, dying of Hodgkin's disease. Mutt Mantle was 40 years old. No male member of the family had ever lived beyond 41. No day would ever pass for Mickey Mantle without that fact, without that awareness of mortality.
Bobby Lane said it one time, if I'd have known I was going to be this old, I'd have took better care of myself. Right. And that's really my story, too. I would have taken a lot better care. I can't believe I'm that old either. We was planning on about 40 or 45.
He had partied and drank by himself with his teammates, especially Whitey Ford and Billy Martin, through the 50s and the 60s. The leg and knee problems that had begun during high school football never ceased. Before each game, he would be wrapped in tape, often from his big toes to the middle of his thighs. And then suddenly it was 1968. The Yankee dynasty was over. Still just 37 years old, Mickey Mantle's legs were nonetheless giving out. 536 home runs had come and gone. He retired during spring training the next year.
In 1969, the Yankees had Mickey Mantle at Yankee Stadium, and there was like 72,000 people showed up that day, and it only held 68 then. I wish everybody in America could have that feeling one time. It's just unbelievable. They rode me around Yankee Stadium in a golf cart, and everybody stood up and applauded, you know, for like 10 minutes, and it's just really a great feeling.
Mickey Mantle was moving into a new career, that of being Mickey Mantle. His statistics could never explain his stature, but in a time in which sports meant only baseball, and baseball meant only the World Series, a time in which most kids felt lucky to be near a TV that had 3 different channels, Mickey Mantle appeared in 12 World Series in just 14 years. 12 World Series televised to every baseball mad kid in America.
I started when I wasn't that much of a kid in the early 50s in Tiger Stadium watching Mickey Mantle run around, and so I started to run like him and throw like him. Never did hit too much like him, but he's been my idol.
I limped like him. I walked like him. My bar mitzvah had an Oklahoma accent.
Eventually, the baby boomers grew up to be the entrepreneurs and the customers of the memorabilia industry, and Mickey Mantle was its and their focus. In 1993, the Upper Deck Company paid Mantle $2,750,000 for 1 year's worth of promotional appearances and autographs, and autographs, and autographs.
I didn't go to heaven, and I finally get in to see God, and he goes, well, Mickey, we can't keep you up here because of the way you acted on earth, you know. But would you do me a favor before you leave? And I said, what's that, God? And he said, would you sign those 24 baseballs?
But the business of being Mickey Mantle didn't just bring money and wry humor. After his career, after his youth, after the death of his son Billy to Hodgkin's, came more alcohol.
I was really depressed after I quit playing ball, and then the last 10 years, for some reason, I knew that I wasn't like I should be. You know, I mean, I wasn't a good father, not a good husband. I'm just like floundering through life. some reason or other, you know, and I knew I had to change.
The change was a seeming epiphany. Mantle went public in May of 1994 about alcoholism, about his feelings of failure and fear and of having let everyone down. A month in the Betty Ford Clinic and the words of a doctor had changed and seemingly saved his life.
He said, I'm not going to lie to you. The next drink you have might be your last, and I'm not kidding you. So he said, your liver's pretty bad. It could be a lot worse, but it's about as bad as it can get.
Take care of your body, Mickey Mantle had begun to preach years before. You only get one. There seemed to be little bitterness as the awareness came that he had not taken care. He had, after all, thought he would not be here to pay that price. But ultimately there was in Mickey Mantle's life what the author Marcel Proust so perfectly summarized in the title of his ultimate novel, The Search for Time Lost.
They used to tell me in Whitey Ford if we didn't slow down, like Allie Reynolds and Vic Rashe and Eddie Lopat, all the old guys used to tell us we better slow down or we're going to be over the hill before our time. And, well, we both made the Hall of Fame.
Didn't do that bad.
But we should have done better.
As this Sunday Sports Day continues, we'll be gathering memories of Mickey Mantle from his teammates and friends as they look back on the life of one of baseball's all-time greats. We'll also bring you the news of the day from the games, including a bizarre incident at Dodger Stadium. Sports Weekly continues in a few moments. Mickey Mantle was a quiet man. His friends were friends for life. Several came to Dallas to spend these last few days by his side. Mickey Mantle didn't give away too many secrets until he discovered that the body which could perform so many uncommon acts athletically was subject to the same ills as the common man medically. Among his moments of greatest public candor, we offer these, which he spent with Roy Firestone.
Thanks, guys. Mickey Mantle visited our up-close program several times over the years. He was a figure who drew a crowd to a taping, even with a closed set, because he represented so much to so many people, and he meant something, too. What follows are a few of my favorite excerpts. The first has to do with a struggling young Mickey Mantle who wanted to quit the game once, but his father, Mutt, wouldn't have it.
So I called my dad, and I said, Dad, and he got him out of the mines. I said, Dad, this Mick. And he said, yeah. I said, well, I'm not doing too good. He said, I've been watching. I said, I don't think I can play ball. He said, what? I said, I don't think I can make it, you know. He said, where are you at? And I told him where I was at in Kansas City. He said, I'll be right up there. He drove all the way from Commerce up to Kansas City, and he comes, I think he's coming up to pat me on the back and say, hang in there or something. He knocks on the door, and I let him in. He just walks right past me, grabs my old suitcase and throws it down. He starts throwing stuff in it. You know, what are you doing? He goes, well, he said, I'm taking you back home. He said, you can work in the mines with me. He said, I thought I raised a man, not a coward. And he said, you're nothing but a coward. He said, you can just come back and work in the mines. And, of course, he's got tears in his eyes, you know, and it really tore me up, you know, see him feeling that bad, too. So it took me about 30 minutes to talk him into letting me have another chance, you know. But anyway, after he went home, I started hitting, and the rest was history.
He didn't get a chance to see the great baseball that you'd play later in your career. Obviously, early on he did. There he is. There's Mutt. If you could take a few moments to talk about the influence of this man, what would you say?
Well, of course, he named me after a ball player before I was born, Mickey Cochran, and from the time I was like 3 or 4 years old, whenever I started running around, and I had a ball glove and a bat in my hand. He became a miner. We moved up to Commerce, Oklahoma, and he started working in the lead and zinc mines. He'd come home at nights about 4 or 5 o'clock. I know he had to be tired. Oh. By that time, I was around 10 or 11, and all he would do from the time he got home until dark is hit me pepper, fly balls. He'd pitch to me. He pitched to me right-handed, and my grandfather, his dad, would pitch to me left-handed. And he told me, when he first started trying to teach me to be a switch hitter, I couldn't hit as good left-handed as I could right-handed because I was naturally right-handed. And he said, you got to keep on. He said, someday you'll be as good a hitter left-handed as you are right-handed, because one of these days they're going to have 2 platoon systems. So there's going to be left-handers, right-handed hitters against left-handed pitchers, and it's happened. The year I joined the Yankees, Casey started 2 platooning. So he knew a lot about what he was talking about.
People look at you as a man's man. What does that mean?
Well, I think that probably comes from my teammates, you know. when I first came up, Joe DiMaggio was my idol, you know, but I was scared to talk to him. And when Clete Boyer and Joe Pepitone and guys like that came up, Roger, nobody ever was afraid of, they still call me Mick, you know. I mean, if I talked to Joe DiMaggio at that time, I felt like I should be saying Mr. DiMaggio. Cab drivers, caddies at my golf course, nobody ever says Mr. Mantle. They just say Mick, you know. I mean, for some reason or other, I'm like kin to him.
Of all the interviews I've done over the years, perhaps for me, the most poignant was the last major interview ever done with Mickey Mantle. It was last year, and Mickey movingly talked about the regret of drinking and the toll it took on his family.
When I was playing, I drank with Billy and Whitey and Hank and Moose. We all did, you know, but it wasn't as bad as it got at the end.
After you retired?
After I retired, yeah. The last 10 years were, I've been having my friends, really close friends, and, you know, doctors. I play golf with doctors down there in Dallas that was talking to me about cutting down on it, you know, because I was starting to have those, like, anxiety attacks.
One of them on an airplane. I remember that story. You thought you were having a heart attack.
I thought I was having a heart attack.
Yeah.
And stuff like that, you know. And then finally, this last time, the last guy, the doctor that I played golf with at Preston Trails told me to go to this specialist. And he put me in one of those. Have you ever been in an MRI?
Oh, yeah, the two.
Man. Yeah, and especially if you've been...
You must have been saying, what the hell am I doing in this thing? Huh?
Yeah. But I did want to find out something because I knew I was getting worse and worse. And he left me in there about an hour and 15 minutes. And then he called me and he said, come up to my office if you can. And I come up there and he said, I'm not going to lie to you. The next drink you have might be your last. And I'm not kidding you. So he said, your liver's pretty bad. It could be a lot worse, but it's about as bad as it can get and not have to do something. So that's when I decided for sure that I was going.
Mick, you know, so much of your life was regret. When you got out of the game, you kept wondering why you weren't a better ball player. And then it was over at a relatively young age, what, 37 years old or 30?
I retired in the spring. I went back to, I was going to try to play another year in 69. I retired in the spring of 69.
You retired at 37?
Well, I was born in 31, whatever that would be.
Well, the fact is, you thought you weren't the ball player you should have been.
I wasn't.
You weren't.
There's no doubt about it. I couldn't, they had me playing first base because I couldn't shag fly balls anymore. I couldn't run good probably after 64. I mean, where, you know, like I could drag a ball and beat it out or something. I couldn't score from second.
It wasn't because of the booze that your career was shortened? I mean...
Well, I'm pretty sure that had a lot to do with it. That's probably the main thing that forced me out.
So booze shortened a career, and then booze was the thing you turned to because you were in pain for having the short career, right?
Well, whenever I would get like that, it took the pain away for some reason or other. Me and Billy talked about it several times.
Billy
you know, about, yeah, Billy Martin. And then, of course, it happened to him on Christmas afternoon. I was laying at home watching TV, and I heard it. And I'd just been with him not too much longer before that, and we had met at my restaurant in New York and started talking about, you know, we got to cool it. And the next thing I know, there he is.
Do you have any doubt that booze at least contributed to his death? Any doubt in your mind?
No, I think it probably had a lot to do with it.
You said it's a different Mickey Mantle now. When you walk down the street, when you see a fan, when you see your sons, how's it different, Mick?
Well, I saw a sad, I don't want to start getting into this, but I saw a very sad movie coming out here that reminded me of Billy. And I don't want to start choking up, but it, I'm
what was the name of the movie?
A very changed man.
What's the name of the movie?
I got it so I can know. You
Take a look.
You want me to look at it?
You bet.
The guy's name is Gilbert Grape.
What's Eating Gilbert Grape?
What's Eating Gilbert Grape, yeah.
Why was it sad, Mick?
Well, Andy, the boy in the movie, was a little weird, a little messed up, and he reminded me so much of my son.
Billy. You have a lot of regret for Billy, and it's still hard.
I don't want to.
You feel you failed him? you feel that in some way that you...
Well, that movie is like he doesn't have a dad. And,
But Mick, you are a dad still. There's a life to be led yet. You're 64 years old. Your boys are healthy. You've got a lot of life yet ahead, and you've dedicated yourself to the life ahead. You can't look back at the past. You can't.
No, I know that.
When you go through all of this, is there any stuff that you pick out and you say, I was a good guy? Or is it you just dismiss all of that guy the last 10 years, that last decade? You say, he was a worthless SOB? Isn't there somebody you could...
No, I was trying. I mean, I wasn't really that bad, to tell you the truth. I've taken good care of everybody. It's just the omission of, like, hugging them or telling them, you know, like in that movie. Did you see that movie?
Yes, I did.
Well, it's a pretty sad movie to me. It's probably sadder to me than it was to other people.
But hugging wasn't something you were part of. Mutt, your dad, wasn't a guy who told you he loved you. You didn't tell him you loved him. There wasn't a lot of hugging in the Mantle family. It wasn't part of your history, Mick.
Part of my deal out there at Betty Ford was to write him a letter, though, and that was pretty hard.
Your dad? What'd you say?
I'll just tell him that he'd been proud of the kid.
Mickey Mantle was idolized and lionized, maybe all out of proportion. But to his credit, he admitted he was no role model. Clearly, he was a hero. The tragedy of his story was in something he would never be able to reconcile: the lost dreams, the lost loves. The fans looked beyond his flaws and loved him unconditionally, the way they'll always love him. Now let's go back to SportsCenter.
Thanks, Roy. And this is part of the reason why they loved him. In 7 of the 10 seasons, from 1955 through 1964, Mickey Mantle hit 300 or better with 30 or more homers. In fact, he did it 4 years in a row. In those seasons, from 1955 through 58, Mantle averaged 331, 41 homers, 125 runs batted in. Mickey Mantle, dead today at the age of 63. Dick Schaap joins us now from New York. And Dick, Mantle was a gigantic figure, perhaps because he put so many smiles on so many people's faces.
Now, Mickey lost his skills over the years, but he never lost his sense of humor. When he was playing, much of his humor was scatological, and it would be a little difficult to repeat it. But later, I remember a few years ago, I was at a dinner sitting at the same table with Mickey, and he met my wife for the first time and looked at her, and he looked at me, and he said, "You're overmarried." And he always had this wonderful lines, even just so recently when he was asked whether or not he might leave some of his organs to science, and he said, "I don't have anything good to give. Everything I've got is wore out." I mean, under those circumstances, you know, he had that sense of humor which he never lost.
All right, Dick, we look forward to the sports reporters coming up at the top of the hour. Next, Mike Tyson is preparing for his return to the ring. But what happened to Tyson personally during his prison years? That story when Sunday Sports Day continues.